Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zack Cherry, and with me as always is...
You know, I just can't believe we got on a plane again. You know what I'm saying? Eddie of Edward is Truth.
I know what you're saying. And today we're talking about Final Destination, released March 17th, 2000. But before we get into any of that, this is a landmark episode for us. Did you know?
Yes, I did. You mentioned it before many times.
Well, who knows? I know sometimes if you don't write things down, you forget. So
you know what? Just go.
We are 100 episodes into the Cherry Picker. That's fun. Anything you want to reflect upon?
Oh, gosh. I mean, outside the pod, my life, yes. But, I mean, within the pod, I don't know. Like, any kind of bemused. I mean, I didn't prepare a statement or anything like that.
Well, we never prepare anything.
No, we really don't.
Yeah. Well,
barely.
Fun fact, because, I mean, this is, like 100, theoretically. But we also have the Cherry Picker After Dark, so this is not really our 100th. And we did this on the old podcast through my Patreon, like way before we started this. And Amethyst Frost, who does the spreadsheet thing of all the Cherry Picker trivia, which you can find if you go to our YouTube page. It's on the About section or whatever, wherever they have it now, because they keep changing their interface. He pointed out the fact that this is actually our 200th episode when you incorporate all the episodes that we did of the old podcast, plus the Cherry Picker After Dark, plus the regular Cherry Pickers. So it's
doubly significant.
It's 100. But it feels like 200 for people who've been with us since then, since way back then,
since the inception.
But yes. But I mean, if you've been with us for 100 episodes, like, congratulations for putting up with all that, and also I guess thank you to you, Edward, for putting up with me for all those times. You know, it's like we've done this.
You pay me, so
yeah. We have done this basically every week for I guess like almost like 4 years now.
We haven't taken many breaks.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a period where we did Fright Club. Wasn't that in between?
That was 2021, the beginning. But we were recording the old podcast before, because it was like summer 2020. Yes. It was right smack dab in the pandy. And
so we were working pretty consistently for you guys.
So
like
we've seen each other like every week, basically for all that time.
For about 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, so not to get all maudlin here, but I'm just, thank you, and it's been great cultivating
not
this.
Not to get all maudlin here, but this is it. This is the end.
It's been shut up so I can be nice to you for once.
I know, right? Here you're finally nice to me, and I spoil it.
You did. It's been great cultivating a friendship and a professional working relationship with you. So here's I only have water, but here's to 100/200 episodes and to many more. So thank you.
Yay! Woohoo!
Anyway, with all that bullshit out of the way, Final Destination. For some reason, I guess it was my psychic powers or my ESP that was just like, what are we doing for 100? And it was just like, Final Destination spoke to me. I don't know why, but
no, this is it. This is we're gonna die.
Could you imagine, like, everyone's just like, oh, I can't wait for next week, and then it's just like, no, they died. I could appreciate the irony of the fact that if this was it, and then, let's just talk about it.
I've had the opportunity to muse on my own mortality many times in the past few years, and I gotta say, like, every time I just kind of shrug and go, well, I mean, I've had a better run than most. So if next week is our time, then it's been pretty damn good.
Yeah, like, I mean, when it happens, it happens. Everyone has like their own perception on things. I like to take a much more, I guess, light approach to it, because I just feel like like you're absolutely right. When nobody knows when their time is. I don't think anyone would want to know, and when it happens, and it's sort of like, and I feel like I'm always talking about death, like especially with my mother. Like she actually called me today, and she was talking about, I guess there's like some measles outbreak or something, and she's like, you really should get a booster. And I'm just like, yeah, I'll get right on that. She's like, you're not going to, are you? And I'm like, well, I will, but I mean, like, if I die, I die, like.
Yeah.
And she equally jokes about it, death too. So I think the thing is, like, death is ultimately part of life.
Absolutely.
It's part of the package, and I think that something that I really appreciate about the Final Destination franchise is that it kind of, I mean, other than being like this silly, ridiculous, like gore fest with these Rube Goldberg-esque death designs, is that it actually, like, at its core, presents a very interesting essay about death and the way that we do face it and challenge it and examine it. So it's just, this franchise, and maybe more so in this installment, because it does kind of go a little crazier after this, but it just, like, I think that there's some very interesting and poignant existential things to mine from the Final Destination franchise.
Yeah, particularly, I mean, not to jump ahead, but I won't use names, so no spoilers in case you haven't seen it. But you guys listening. No, the characters who, shall we say, make it through to the end and everything like that, they walk an interesting line in that they're, at times in the story, kind of like living this fear-based existence where they're putting up, I don't know, just kind of like dealing in maybe like the most extreme ways, each in their own particular fashion, based on who their character is. But the fact that they can all kind of like be resigned to do something, like the line that I just said is one of the last lines in the movie, just like, I just can't believe we went on a plane again, you know what I mean? And that kind of recklessness is something that you have to kind of earn after you've been through everything those characters have been through in the movie. Yeah. And the fact that they achieve it, I can't tell if it's something that I admire or something that I think, you stupid, I don't.
Well, I think the thing with the Final Destination franchise, because I did a video recently, the last video I uploaded to YouTube, which was which horror franchise would you survive based on your zodiac sign? Because obviously, me, I'm like a big astrology whore, and I know, right? And the Final Destination did come up as like a potential franchise, because it's like there's 5 entries going on a 6th one. Like, how would you, like, who would survive the Final Destination franchise? And ultimately, I just nixed it from the list because, I mean, nobody really survives, and it's not really based on any sort of like skill or being able to figure it out, because it's just like the bottom line of every one of these movies is that death eventually does catch up with you, and there is no avoiding it. So sadly, if you're in a Final Destination movie, you're gonna die. Even if it's like not in the real time or the canon of what is shown, when those credits roll, you're probably dead.
Yeah, it's interesting that they assign, and there's a lot that not about a lot, but there is some more that I have to speak to in terms of like the forces that are at work here, the ones that don't really have a name or a face per se. But this is, I think, I don't remember if any of the other movies have a shadow character, like, or just a shadow presence that like kind of moves in to nefariously, like, impose themselves, with the message like, your life is about to end, kind of thing. But there is no voice, it's just kind of like this thing that passes through in certain scenes in this movie.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Well, wasn't like Tony Todd, I don't know if I'm like misremembering or something, but wasn't it like revealed that he was death or something, and he was just sort of like, also the mortician and or was that just sort of a coincidence? I remember he's
I
in
mean,
the he's in the third one
the
as a
other movie.
voice. He's like the voice of
Right.
like the roller coaster ride announcer. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And doesn't he make appearances in, aside from 3, all the other ones as well?
I think he's in the first 2 and then the 5th one.
Okay.
I don't think he's in the final like the
final. This is the fourth
yeah.
one. The fourth one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because I don't know. It just struck me with this movie. I just kind of felt like you're the Tangina Barons. You know, you're the the Zelda Rubinstein of this particular franchise, because you're there to kind of like be mysterious and hook into like the one with like prior knowledge apparently as to like what this is and what powers it can offer, but also what is there any power in the pocket of the people who are trying to outrun it and everything like that. But I think Tangina's maybe a little bit more involved.
Yeah, I mean, like
in preserving life than he is, because he knows what you say, which is basically that death is inevitable.
Yeah.
I mean, the last line that he gives to Clear and Alex in this movie before he makes his, well, he doesn't even make an exit, before they make their exit, is just like, see you soon, because he's the mortician.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's really the extent of his role. I don't remember the other ones because it's been so long since I've seen them, so I think he just kind of like has
I don't remember them either.
one scene per movie that he is in, which is fine, because I don't think that like it's a fun cameo. Like I feel like if he was in it more, then it would like sort of be like, okay, there isn't anything like mysterious about him anymore. He is sort of just like a mortician, and then he's like going to be involved, and then he might die or what, because everyone who hangs around them eventually seems to
He's like the prize in the cereal box, or like the toy in the Happy Meal. Do they even do that anymore? Do kids nowadays know what I'm talking about?
I think that they're still like McDonald's Happy Meals toys. There must
With
be.
toys? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If not, look it up. Like it was epic when I was growing up.
Well, we talked about it with the Batman Returns ones.
That's
where they
true.
had but that was
The
a
Batman
cherry
Forever
picker
glasses.
after Dark.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Batman Forever had the glasses that you could buy,
And the
the
Batman
Hercules
Returns toys,
plates.
yeah.
See, I preferred
Yes.
those over the toys as like the actual like collectible items that they had separate of things that you could actually buy. Maybe it was like $10 or whatever, because I had the whole set. Could you imagine like a Final Destination line of like McDonald's plates or just tumblers?
I thought you were gonna say toys.
You can have toys too. They can do a
Each
ton.
kill, you get like the teacher with like like a knife, a retractable knife that goes into her chest.
Yeah. Well, have you seen like someone did make like this meme, and it was just like what Happy Meals would look like if they were celebrating horror franchises. So there was like a Hellraiser one. It was just sort of like the McDonald's Happy Meal box, but with the decorative movie.
I think I saw that.
Oh, look it up.
Forward it to me.
Me going on to Google and searching something at this point to find it.
No, but if it comes up in your story or something, just
if
send
it
to
comes
me
up
in DMs.
into a story, I'll send it to you. But okay, listen, everyone. Half the time that I find something and I send it to Edward, he says, "Seen it," and it's just like, oh, okay. Well, if you've seen it, then why did you never send it to me?
Yeah. Because I always have to have Zack Cherry, in mind, and I always have to be.
And
I don't know, because not everything, like some things inspire, but I don't want to. I also don't want to send it to you and have you just be kind of, because I think I dread that I'm going to get the same reaction, just like, yeah, everyone's seen that.
So that's like sort of like a defensive protective shield that you put up, like seen
exactly.
Okay, I know who you are now. It only took 200 recordings, but I know who you are.
Do as I say, not as I do.
And I'm more like, when I say jump, you say hi, how high.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
that's the dynamic. That's the dynamic here.
All right.
There's always an alpha.
Before we get to the synopsis, just a little housekeeping. I do want to welcome a new Patreon supporter. and that will be Anthony. So welcome aboard. Appreciate your support. If anyone else would like to support on Patreon, that is my Patreon account, Zack Cherry, ZackCherry. You will get early access to all of our Cherry Picker episodes. And if you are supporting on the Freddy Krueger tier, you'll also get access to the Cherry Picker After Dark, which we've already mentioned, which is the bonus episode we do every month. And this past month, we did Survivor. Final Girls, as in the reality show, but rather than, reality TV personalities on the island, it is Final Girls from all the movies that we've already covered on the Cherry Picker. Lots of fun. We did it with Scream as well.
And it is Survivor, because when we did Scream, wasn't it Scream Survivor? But now it's Survivor : Final Girls. Is that what we're
I
doing?
have no idea.
I don't know how it goes.
I'm not that persnickety with...
You made the artwork. You sent me one. I still have it.
Okay.
I should look at it. But
we'll just call it Survivor Final Girls. Because when they do a season of Survivor, it's like Well, now it's all just like Survivor, like 45, 46, because they have no imagination anymore. But, but like a few years ago, it was like, they'd have the theme and there'd actually be a title to it, or the location that they, had gone to. So I guess technically it should be, Survivor Final Girls, but we called it Scream Survivor back then, because there's also like there's Survivor exists like in other countries as well. There's like Australian Survivor, and that's what it's called. So
okay, so if we do a brand, like one brand, then it'll go ahead of Survivor. But if we do kind of like a conglomerate version, we can like a category, then the category will
honestly
be the subtitle.
It still doesn't make any sense. Just know that
I'm just being a Virgo about it. I'm sorry.
You are, I know. Yeah. just know that there are 18 Final Girls from all of the movies that we've covered thus far, and we put them on an island, starting into 3 different tribes, and
with Wes Craven hosting.
He didn't. We had that intention, but I don't think we ever really.
We didn't really play it up this time.
But
and Wes Craven shows up, I guess. We did like twice, I think. I think you mentioned him twice.
Yeah. But it's more or less it's just them. It's just them going at each other.
Yeah.
So
it's fun.
Good times. If you want to check those out, head over to my Patreon. I also want to thank Boy Cried Wolf, who is our editor, who makes all of this possible outside of us bickering with each other every week. I 100. Wow. Give us.
Aren't we past that point yet?
Give us your synopsis.
Give us your money. Give us your money. Oh, I thought you were still talking to the people. Okay.
No.
Synopsis. Okay, premise. I've got premise.
Sure.
Okay. Should I do it? I was thinking about doing it like what's his name? The little guy, Todd, because he's got that kind of discernible.
Yeah. Is that his real voice?
I meant to look it up, and I forgot once I finished screening the movie. I was going to look and see if there were interviews with him, but I know where he's from.
Do you know who that actor is?
No.
Well, you were going to say you know where he's from.
Yeah. I mean, I know, like, regionally where he is.
Oh, I was going to say, do you know what else he did?
No, what did he do?
Wasn't he the guy in Saw 3D? Like all the cops are dead, and he just like showed up in the final chapter, and he was the guy who was sort of like on jail detail. I don't know what else to explain.
Maybe
Chad E. Donella is the actor.
Yeah, that
right?
guy.
Yeah,
that guy. Okay. But he's got this kind of, I can't tell where he's from. It's kind of East Coast, almost.
Is
maybe
he kind of like Woody Allen a little when you...
Kind of. Like, I mean, I think I laughed out loud when he was standing there with Alex at the funeral. And it's just like, yeah, I'd better go. And the funny thing is, like, his father, the actor who plays his father, who speaks... pretty much, and his brother who has a few lines, neither one of them sound like that. They're both just like, hey, you better go out there and check on him, or Todd, get inside, or like something like that. And then there he is with his character voice. So I was thinking about maybe doing it like that. Oh, but where he's from regionally is Toronto. He was born there.
Was this filmed in Toronto or Vancouver?
Let me double check.
Because it's definitely in Canada.
Okay.
It looks Vancouver to me.
Filming locations: Vancouver International Airport, Victoria. Todd's house is in Vancouver, so there you go.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's mostly Vancouver, a little Victoria. I've been to both. Just saying.
Oh, wow.
Oh, and a little bit at JFK Airport too, but that's probably just the stock footage, or not the. I guess it's
Like
not
establishing shots.
Yeah, like just to make it look like they were leaving from JFK.
Yeah,
when
because there's nothing in here looks like New York at all.
No,
Yeah. And I mean like New York State.
They
like
were
it's
from
just,
New York.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I guess they just generic American airport. I thought they were from somewhere in the Midwest, except for Todd, of course.
But with how lush and green and rainy it was, it's just like this has to be Vancouver.
I know, right? Absolutely.
Yeah, and also, I mean, well, you better read the synopsis because we're gonna.
Okay, because we're gonna get into it.
Yeah.
Okay. 2 hours later, I read the synopsis. The premise. It's not a synopsis. I don't break down the story for you. I just trailer voice. But this time, okay.
Woody.
Ready?
Yeah.
After getting a premonition about a plane crash on his school trip, student Alex saves a handful of his classmates and one teacher from their mortal fate. But will their situation get complicated when death starts chasing them to their final destination?
No, I'm only ever going to hear Woody Allen for that character.
Yeah, I started to actually, when I was doing it, realize I'm very Cyndi Lauper, actually. It's good enough for you. Yeah. So, Goonies.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I was going to
ahead.
say that it makes sense that it's Vancouver because this was like all the people involved in this worked on the X-Files. Correct me if I'm wrong. And this was actually originally written as a spec script for an episode of X-Files. Which would have been an excellent episode of television, like a very memorable X-Files episode. But I mean, I guess like, things happen the way that they should have, because I feel like this opened up like such an iconic franchise, with everything that came from it. And also I was going to say that it's also another franchise from a gay creator. So we've got Jeffrey Reddick, who wrote the script. So Final Destination, Child's Play, and Scream, all from the minds of the evil gays.
And those are the only 3 franchises you need. No, I'm just kidding. But and throw in a little. I mean, it's not the whole franchise, but like Hellraiser with Clive Barker. And
oh, right, there you go. Yeah,
that with Clive Barker.
Yeah.
And we got a few. We're in there. We are all over.
Yeah.
If you watch that documentary, I can't remember. Was it Queer for Fear on Shudder? Like there was exposition I didn't even have access to. I was just kind of like, they were queer too. Like they went way back, like to like Bram Stoker and Mary Shelley and shit.
There's a lot of gay shit going on in horror.
Yeah, there's a reason we're drawn to this shit. It's our gay heritage. And I mean, seriously, it really is. But it's interesting that you bring up that that the premise itself even was originally like intended as an X-Files episode. I feel like now I like this franchise. I'm going to put this out there. That said, with this particular movie, the way they chose to end it makes me feel like very similar to kind of like what I said for Joyride last time we were gathering for a regular episode. It opens really strongly, I thought. Even this time, I was just kind of like, why don't I watch this movie more often? And then as it closed, I was like, oh, because this is why. I think, had it been an X-Files episode, I think you're absolutely right. It would have been a classic, memorable episode, because X-Files doesn't really resolve anything or need to resolve anything. So I feel like it could have just ended with a question mark. Like, so was the kid really crazy? Did this really, were they really outrunning death? Or, is death even something that you can outrun? Like, it brings up like some really, really big questions that I feel like the movie posits early on, but resolves itself, again, like Joyride, more in the vein of an action movie, to my taste anyway.
Yeah.
Did you recognize any of that at all?
Well, just in terms of it being an episode of The X-Files, I think that when you take the span of like 45 minutes or, 42 or whatever you get, I think, this definitely would have worked, and there would have been a lot, like it would have been a much, tighter ride from start to finish. There wouldn't be a lot of, what might be filler or just kind of downtime. Because I was actually surprised. I was like putting on I have the button on my player that just hit the display, and it shows like how much time has elapsed through a movie, and by the time the plane crashes, like that takes a long time to happen. There's a lot of build up to that, whereas like if this was an episode of The X-Files, especially since we're mostly following Mulder and Scully, or am I saying their names right?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I thought maybe I would have like inverted them, or it was just like Sculder and Muldy.
Mulder. He's French, so it's Mulder.
Mulder.
And she's Scully.
Schooly and Mulder. But no, because like we're like seeing the movie through their perspective, so any of the stuff with like the guest characters and what's going on like would be very brief. So that probably would have been the cold open of the episode, just like the plane taking off, the guy having a premonition, getting off the plane, and then the plane exploding. That would have been like the first 3 minutes or so of the episode. Then you have like and then the episode starts. So then
that's how I hear it.
Yeah. So like watching it as a movie,
and they would have been the two FBI agents.
Yeah.
Scully and Mulder would have been the two FBI
agents. I didn't even think about that. Very interesting. Right? Now I'm
weird names.
Now I'm curious about which one would have been Mulder and which one would have been Scully.
I think Mulder would have been, I can't remember which one is which, but I think Mulder would have, as far as their names are concerned, but I think Mulder would have been the one.
The white guy and the black guy.
Black? Is he black?
I think so.
I mean, he's dark. He's darker skinned, the dark olive skinned guy.
The white guy and the not white guy. Let's just be basic for the sake of
the pale guy and the not so pale guy. I don't know who they are or what they do, but I think Mulder would have been the not so pale guy, who's like, for a second I was, I almost believed him or something, and I don't think Scully would have dismissed it, the way pale guy did, which is kind of like, you scare me. I can't see Scully doing that. Although Gillian Anderson might have been able to kill that line, like she might have just been like, what, sometimes Mulder, you scare me. And then it would have been funny. It would have been cute, like little banter that they do.
Yeah, I have not seen The X-Files in such a long time, so it's so foreign to me. But at the time, I remember seeing it a lot. But it's just one of those things that for me, it's just like a 90s time capsule. But definitely like the first, what was like almost like probably 20 or 30 minutes or whatever of the movie would have been over really quickly, and the rest of the episode would have just been sort of them following these characters around as they probably are like dying mysteriously one by one until it gets to the end. It's just like, well, what was this all? And it would have obviously been more so through the perspective of the investigators rather than the people who are being I guess attacked, for lack of a better word, by death. And I don't know, like thinking about that, like would it be more interesting to be part of that outside observer and just watching it? Because I think there's a case to be made for both. Like it is fascinating to watch it through the characters who are part of Death's design, because something that's interesting is with each one of them is that they all kind of have a different approach to, or just like a perspective of like what has happened to them. Like not everyone is like completely 100% the same. Like the Sean William Scott character, he's just like looking at more of just like, oh, I could win the lottery, or what if I ask this girl out, like what's gonna happen? Like he's not really like taking in the gravity of the situation. He's more like looking at like, oh, this guy's like a good luck charm sort of thing. And then you have what's her face, the blonde girl, and she's kind of pragmatic. She's just like, they died, we lived, get over it. Like, let's just move on.
Right.
And
Terry's her name.
Yeah. And it's just like everyone has like a very unique perspective of the whole thing, and I think that that's interesting. And I think that obviously, like in the sequels, they do. Not to say they do a much better job, but it's more so focused on like getting everyone together and then just being like, this has happened. Like, I think not every sequel, from what I remember, is like as successful, because like some of them introduce like new complications to the death's design and ways to live. But it's more so about like how do we kill all these people in like very fantastical ways. And I was surprised to watch this again and see that like nothing's really that like far out there. Like, it's just that there's nothing is too groundbreaking in terms of like the certain deaths that occur.
I mean, I have to say, when little Todd was, because he's the first one to go after, like the rest of their class goes. But I was watching the execution of his kill, because I remember like the choking and the hanging and all of that, and it being memorable. I had forgotten about the red eyes, but all I could think was, it's right off the bat crazy nutso ridiculous, and yet effective, because I know if that happened to me, I'm not afraid of it happening to me, but I could. It's relatable enough that I was imagining, what if I were just hanging and there were lotion in the tub, so I was slipping and I couldn't just lift myself out for whatever reason, no matter how much I tried, and I couldn't scream for help. What would those last moments? Because that's the biggest thing. I am not afraid of death, but I am afraid of dying horribly.
Horribly, yeah.
Horribly. I don't want the horror in my death. Yeah. I want to die, quietly.
There's something very visceral about that scene, just because, when we're talking about how it's, just the soap on the bathtub, because it's just like, this is, like there's all these things that like you could prevent this, but he's, really barefoot, has like slippery, really has no chance of getting himself out of that situation. But then you look at like Terry's death, for example, which is just more of like shock value, because if you look at that scene and just like the way it's framed, there's absolutely no fucking way that would happen in that scenario. Like, that bus may have just like flown out of nowhere, like it came out of a portal, because if you look at the street before she even steps out on it, there's like construction on one side that's like blocking off like that lane. There's like, so the bus would have had to like have turned to that. It's clearly not turning. So it was just, that always kind of actually takes me out of the movie, because it's just like, no. It's a great moment, but it's just like, come on. Let's be realistic.
I mean, for me, it's not even, I can see where, it could be like aimed at like shock value, or if somebody says that's just there for shock value, I'm not going to say like you're wrong, but I will say for me it's a comedic beat.
It's great.
Yeah, anytime I've watched it with other people, there is always laughter that follows that, and it has become one of the most memorable things about that movie. And if you haven't seen the movie, you've probably seen that clip anyway, or you will, and you'll be like, "What is this movie? Now I have to see it." So,
and I love that it's like immediately followed up with like them. What is it, like the Alka-Seltzer? Is that what it's called? With the thing that they drop into the water? Because it's just that was stressful. Let me just like just take the edge off here. But no, I think that my favorite kill. Actually, the one that the thing in the bathtub, like that's was probably the one that was that's the most Rube Goldberg of like, what we do kind of eventually get to, because it starts with like the water dripping out and kind of like creeping up and following him and starting this like chain reaction of things that lead to it. And I think that that's what the franchise really leans into in subsequent entries, and just doing that in more fantastical ways. But I always loved the Sean William Scott one, where the piece of loose metal goes flying, because it's just like, it's so telegraphed, and just like his by the way, he's so miscast in this role. I don't know what he's doing in it. Like, I don't mind it but it's just like, why is he playing this role? It just does not seem fit, because he would be more of like...
He's got that adorable little face. He's got that adorable sweet face.
But he,
that's why.
but he would probably, I would see him more as like a Carter character, but he's sort of like... Anyway, he's just standing there. He's just like, you're dead. You're dead. Like, nothing he's saying is making any sense. Like, he's hysterical. And just like, oh, shut up and just like get down. You're about to die. But then like he just turns around and the thing, it doesn't even like decapitate him. It cuts him off like South Park, like the Canadian versions of people in South Park where they look like Terrence and Phillip.
Terrence and Phillip.
He may as well just like the half head,
because his jaw is still intact. Like it's but not like his teeth, like just below his teeth, but above his chin is where it got him and went right all the way through. But one thing I love about Sean William Scott is that yes, of course. But one thing that I love is that, and with very little blood, like you get to see the meat, but there's no, Tarantino blood squirt or anything like that. Yeah. But the thing that I love about Sean William Scott is that I'm convinced if this were a play instead of a movie, Sean William Scott would have been the understudy for Carter and Alex. He's one of those guys who is like, you'll play this like little small role, but because you can play anything in this script, like we'll have you fill in anytime any of the other lead guys, because he's got the body for like a Carter, but he's also I think got because I've seen him in other stuff, and I think he's got the chops and the accessibility to play.
What happened to him? What does he do these days? I have not seen him in anything.
As far as I know, he's still working. I mean, I haven't looked it up, but I haven't seen him honestly like in something in a minute. But anytime we say that, we look it up, and they're usually doing like Hallmark movies and stuff like that. Here I'm looking. 2023, he did something called The Wrath of Becky. He was in 27 episodes of something called Welcome to Flatch. It looks like a kids thing, so it's a TV 14 thing. So you and I aren't going to have any exposure to it, but I bet it's good money. And he did the Lethal Weapon series.
Oh, I remember. I never saw it, but I remember hearing that there was
15 episodes of that from 2018 to 2019. Yeah. He's been working, just not in like really high profile stuff. It is so easy to fall through the cracks these days too, because there is just so many platforms with so much content.
And it's just funny because like at the time, like 2000, like these were all like Sean William Scott might have been the most prolific person in the cast, at least just because this was coming right off of the heels of like the American Pie. I guess at least the first one. I don't know if like the sequel had come out yet. And then Devon Sawa was already like well known, and I think that what's his face, your favorite, was obviously from Dawson's Creek. But Ali Larder was like, she was relatively new because she had done House on Haunted Hill, and she was in like a few other things. But I remember her like she was like kind of like the it girl on the way up. But it's funny that like you would see this and like, oh, they're all like the famous people of the time, and now it's just like, what happened to them? And I mean, like Devon Sawa, like good for him that he's kind of like coasted through on like this like D-list almost for a while, and then like every once in a while he like hops up onto something and he just becomes like super relevant again, and just because like obviously now like doing Chucky, and it's just like good for him. And I like that it's whenever he's doing things in the horror genre, and it just like that should tell you that this is where you belong.
So now that you've brought up Devon Sawa, let's talk about him for a second, because I think a huge component of why this movie works, aside from like I said, it opens strong. I am very much kind of like in the is this the right term, in the pocket of this movie? I guess like I'm on the ride. I am so willing and ready. I meant to actually time how long before the start time of the movie to the explosion, the real life explosion that happens, where they have to deal with the real life consequences of being survivors and everything like that. And I wanted to do that kind of as we move through each one of these movies whenever we return to this franchise, because I know we will. But I completely forgot, because by the time we reached that second explosion, the real one, I was engrossed in the movie, and I forgot that I set this little goal for myself. And a huge part of why, aside from, I love all the little signals that they plant, all the weird, even in the opening credits, I started chuckling to myself when I saw "Death of a Salesman." Like he's got a copy of it, like behind. I think it was his passport or his airline ticket or something.
I think it was the traveling guide for France.
Oh, okay. For France, right? That's right. That's right. And then there was a few other things that I caught, but I meant to look up the Ali Larter reading Tropic of Cancer. I know Henry Miller, but I'm not familiar with that particular work. I wondered, is that about like apartheid or some kind of like sweeping death or something like that? I wanted to look it up.
The only thing I know about Tropic of Cancer is that wasn't that the book that Jerry took out of the library that on Seinfeld, and he never returned it like after 15 years, and the library cop had to like go track him down.
Welcome to the Cherry Picker, where all roads lead to Melrose Place or Seinfeld. But maybe. I don't remember. You'd remember better.
No, I don't know anything about the Tropic of Cancer.
Okay, well, one more thing for me to look up then, because I'm always going to look at what Clear is reading now, because she reads actually quite a few books while she's in the airport.
Okay, here's a question for you.
Yeah, okay, what's my question?
When you first saw this movie, did you think that her name was Claire for like the longest time?
Yes, absolutely.
Same.
And I don't think I realized it was Clear until the end credits when I when I saw Clear Rivers, Ali Larter, and I was like, oh my God, they've been saying Clear this whole time.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember if we ever see it written down in the movie, and if we did, I missed it this particular screening. But,
yeah. Well, I mean, we don't.
Maybe,
for most movies, we don't really see
people's
people's names written down. It's just that they'll say their name. And Clear. Right. I mean, even if they're saying Clear, just because you don't ever expect to hear someone whose name is Claire, that you would just assume it Claire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now that you're putting the emphasis on Claire, because even when you're saying Clear, like if you say it fast enough while you're just talking about Claire, then it sounds like you're saying Claire.
Yeah. My response to like finding it out was the same as Jill's in Scream 4 when Gail says, "I've got one more word for you, Clear." Claire.
Claire, and then Sydney correcting Gail, saying Claire for no reason at all. But and it makes no sense.
Yeah.
But no. So I want to say about Devon Sawa though, like he is a big part of the hook for me. In addition to all these wonderful little kind of like things they've planted for us, these enticing little morsels of death throughout. Part of the reason I think they work is because of his reaction to them. There is something really, really hard about behaving authentically with fear and still not looking weak. Like he is so much more interesting than I think I had ever seen him prior to this. And I hadn't seen him in much before this, but I remember just thinking, I like this kid. Like, I'm really feeling for him. Like, he's reeling from stuff. And they're also, like, it was wonderful to see a male protagonist character in a horror movie be afraid in a way that never made me worry whether he was going to be able to handle himself or not. I actually thought, everybody listen to him, because he's the one with the visions. Like, when they're all arriving at the memorial statue, which we'll talk about in a second. But when they're all there and everybody's having their various responses based on like how their character would respond to, what they've just been through. Yeah. Clear, for me, responds to him in the only correct way, which is to acknowledge the fact that she doesn't say all of this, but the way Ali Larter delivers her performance, I don't understand any of this any more than anyone else, but the plain fact of the matter is that all may as well have like preceded her line when she says, because of you I'm still alive, and that's all I know, but I can accept that, and thank you. That is all you need to kind of like for me to be on your side in this movie. And the fact that she is the only character capable of offering that makes me endeared to her as well. But I just start kind of like rooting for these kids. I don't know so much about the romance of it. I didn't really need that, but sure, why not? They're both pretty people.
Well, I think it's just a matter of just like, being in a situation like that and just being connected through a thing like that. And I think that it progressed as naturally as it could have. There's obviously a lot more in the actually there's a lot to address there. I guess first of all the Devon Sawa of it all, and I would say that probably the reason why he's sort of just stands above the rest a little bit more is because this is a child actor. Like, he had been working for a long time before that, whereas I feel like most of these other young people in the movie had just like, they were like brand new. Like, they had just started, within like the last couple of years before that. I mean, I could be mistaken, but I don't remember, Care Smith being in anything before Dawson's Creek or, any of that. Whereas like Devon Sawa was around, like he was in like Casper for one, but just like all these like kids movie, like probably some baseball stuff, I'm sure. So he'd been around the block for a while, so he had kind of those like acting chops from being a child actor and kind of parlaying that into a career beyond that. So yeah, I actually agree. I think that Devon Sawa is a really great actor. So again, I'm glad that he's doing Chucky. What else did you bring up? Oh yes, I guess the everyone responding differently at the memorial. And this is part of I mean, I get it, but this is part of the movie that kind of irks me a little, is just the way that like there's all these characters who, I mean, for some it makes sense and it works. Like the teacher just being like get away from me, you scare the hell out of me. Like that's good. I like that kind of drama. But for like the dad of the best friend, like the Woody Allen character's dad, for him to like be like
Todd.
Yeah, for him to be like leering at Alex and just like having beef with him, it's just like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Like, as far as he's concerned, it's just like, because of you, both my kids aren't dead right now. So it just like it seemed a little forced that like so many people were just kind of like giving him this stink eye and just like, what the I know it might be like that they're sort of like creeped out by him or whatever, but like it didn't always read like that. Like the way that the dad was playing it was just kind of like, look what you've done to my family. We're just like, rather than like, I don't want you talking to that kid, he's weird. It wasn't that same energy. So no, I do. I appreciated like the varied responses, but there were some that just felt, very inauthentic to what the movie needed to be. And then the last thing, which I started to get to, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but because you sort of touched upon it earlier on, especially just in terms of like the joyride of it all. But did you know about the deleted and like alternate endings and all that?
I think I did at some point. I think I just assumed, because also you can really tell it's a new ending at the end because they all look older.
Oh, she's blonde.
All look different.
Yeah.
And Devon Sawa is blonde. Like he was, like fair-haired before, but it has been bleached, and even they all look different. Like they've either been working out more, or they've been dieting, they've been tanning. Like time has passed in a real way, not in a way that like is done for production. So I knew I think I knew about that a while ago, but I haven't thought about it in a long time. So what, you got any tidbits?
So yes, there was a separate storyline that like was more so to the romance aspect of it between the characters of Alex and Clear. And it was during the scene where she finds him on the beach and she's telling the story about her father and her perception of death and life. And I guess they get it on right there on the beach. And then shortly thereafter, she realizes that she's become pregnant. And
oh my God.
At the end of the movie, like the final confrontation, like, when she's in the car and the live wires going crazy, he grabs it and then he dies. Like it just like he catches on fire, she escapes and lives. And then months later, she gives birth to his child. And I guess like Alex's parents are now like her parent, like, they're looking after her. And I couldn't tell if she was living with them in their house or she was still in her place just raising this kid. But she takes the child to like out for in the stroller, and they go to the memorial, and Carter's there, and he's mourning still, I guess. And they're just, I forget what he says exactly, but he says like, I'm sorry that he couldn't be there to see his child, and she says, no, he's here with me all the time. And she just says some like very, I guess, like it was considered to be too sentimental. It wasn't the ending that people wanted from what the movie was.
Yeah.
But the implication was that the only way to cheat death was to bring life into it. And that was like, yeah, but it still doesn't make any sense because, like, well, why is Carter still alive? But it's
who did he impregnate?
yeah, but I guess it didn't. They did all these test recording or test previews, and audiences just did not respond to it. So they're like, no, we don't like the fact that Alex died and Carter lived. So you got to go back in there and switch it around, make sure that Carter is the one that dies.
Yeah, that's schmaltzy. I don't like that. It doesn't. I mean, it's a very clear thing to remark on, like, he's always with me and everything like that. Like that's okay, but no, the direction that it takes it leaves you with like, that's not the movie I've been sitting here for however many minutes I've been here. Were there any others?
I didn't watch I was watching a featurette that kind of touched upon the scenes, but the deleted scenes are available. I have the old DVD with the snap case and the iridescent cover, which is really cool.
Yeah, I love that.
I need to upgrade. I'm waiting for like a Arrow or Scream Factory or Vinegar Syndrome, whatever you have to just put out a special edition of the movie.
Sure.
So yeah, I've been waiting for that, but no, I've had that DVD for a long ass time, and it's been a while since I've watched it. But when I did have it, like, when I first bought it, like, I would watch this movie all the time. It was one of my favorites, and I think in the years since, I've just like, I still really love it. I think that I would probably give this 3.5 out of 5, just because it does kind of, like the downtime it takes, it just kind of it slows the movie down a little bit too much towards the end, and then sort of like how, like you said, the movie does end. It's not a cohesive bridge from one aspect to the other, but like the start of the movie, like probably like all like to the halfway point, is excellent.
Yeah, I don't know what my ranking would be. I'd probably be closer to 3 now, just because that's the thing. It's so promising in the beginning that it is kind of a letdown by the time. That I hate being reminded why I don't return to something more often.
I don't think, but that's the thing. I don't think that the letdown is that extreme. Like, it's not like a joyride, which, I mean, I didn't love the first half of that movie. It's like apples and oranges.
More than you did.
You did, but it's like apples and oranges comparing the two movies. But there are a lot of movies that are like start off really, like, I would say a good example of this, and maybe we'll cover it one day, is Mute Witness, which has an extraordinary first act. Like, the first 30 minutes of that movie are perfect. And then the rest of the movie happens, and it's just like, what the fuck is this? To the point where it's just like, when I revisit the movie, I don't watch past the first 30 minutes. I just, like, this is a great short film, and I'm gonna, like, not watch the rest of the movie. So even though that, like, Final Destination, like, I wouldn't even say it falters, but it just kind of, it doesn't have the same momentum that it does in the first half. I wouldn't say that that's, like, a complete failure. Like, the movie did go on to become a franchise with 4 more entries and a 6th one on the way. So it's just like, everything it did was fine. It obviously made the right decisions, and their decision to change that storyline and make it what it is. And that's why I look at that and I don't feel that the romance between them is forced, because I know that it could have been a lot different. Like, it's not it's not like a Alicia Witt and Jared Leto urban legend situation where it's just like those two had no business being romantically linked. But I understand what you're saying. I just don't think it's as bad as that. It could have been worse.
That's fair. But I mean, the problem is, like I said, like, for me, the pendulum did swing, like, pretty heavily in the opposite direction, because I went from being so engrossed that I was forgetting the little tasks that I assigned myself in as a Virgo. That's kind of what I go to the movies for. And then towards the end, I was like, if I had a watch on, I would have been checking it. I think I did check my phone at one or two points before the credits rolled. But I mean, the thing that it does win me back, because I don't think it's the whole end. It's literally, I believe, from the point, pretty much everything that follows after the moment you mentioned, where Billy Hitchcock, Sean William Scott's character, gets decapitated I guess it's still technically decapitated, even if the jaw is still kind of intact. But where pretty much after that, because that's when Alex starts, he's already kind of veered in the conspiracy theorist direction in a non-derogatory way, but then all of a sudden he starts rattling off this dialogue about being God and stuff like that, and I can't follow it. I don't know what the movie intends for it to be. I'm just kind of like, feel like I'm watching opera at this point. I can't really follow the thoughts of the characters, but I'm watching what they're doing. So it's like, okay, so he's ranting, she wants him to stop, he runs off and leaves the two of them, and now she wants to go off and find him with, you know, and bring him back or whatever. I'm like, okay.
You know what I think?
And then
it is?
Yeah.
I think it's the FBI of it all that actually kind of brings it down. And it's interesting because I said that, you know, I would like to see the perspective through the investigators, but it's almost like it doesn't work when we're kind of jumping back and forth between the two storylines in a way. As even though there's not a whole lot with the FBI, but I remember watching the scene where the teacher, Mrs. Luton, like that whole scene goes, it's a really long scene, and it's because it's intercut with, like, he goes to her house, she notices him, calls the FBI, they come and they take him in, they question him, and then he leaves. He's there for a while, he leaves, and then he goes back to the house while all this stuff is still happening with her, and it kind of stalls things for me. And then of course after that you have the FBI and they're going to clear, and they're just like, tell us, and we don't know if she told them, and then we see that she did tell them because they show up at the cabin, and it's just like it feels like a lot of it's just slowing down to slowly getting to the inevitable, I guess is the best way to describe it. And other than, like, there are like little bits like the thing on the train tracks, which I actually think is a really great set piece. I would agree with you that it does feel like it's kind of veering off by that point.
Ironically, off the tracks.
Sure, yeah.
Because also that's the thing, is that's when like everything that leads up to it, like, again, I'm still kind of on board, but it is a bit of a turnoff because seeing a character like Carter put in charge at that particular moment, and especially when he's played in such a way by this actor, who I've already put on the table in a previous episode, I don't really care for what he puts forth, because he's a character who comes from nothing. And again, like, even a character who I hate, I've seen enough horror movies to know when you give me the dick, you know, the asshole, and other parts of the anatomy as well that are derogatory. When you put the person who is there for
Pussies,
you to hate
dicks,
them,
and
so
assholes,
you can hope.
According to
exactly.
What's the Team America?
Yeah, and and other parts as well.
Sure.
I'm trying to think, are there any other things we call people that are like, I mean, the shit, like, that comes out of the asshole. But anyway, okay, I'm gonna stop.
The shit could also be and taken in a positive connotation. Okay.
No, he's not the shit. He's
just
a
shit.
shit.
Yeah,
we'll put it that way. Okay, he's a shit. So. I mean, like, if you put him in a lineup, you're just kind of like, which one's the shit? That one.
Yeah.
But not like hey man, he's the shit. No, he's the shit of the group. You know, that kind of thing. Does that make sense with my tone?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I know what you mean.
Anyway, this character, the fact that, like, he also isn't, like, coming from anywhere that, because all the other characters I kind of, like, get where they're coming from. This one just seems like fueled by anger and fueled by, but with nonsense behind it. Like, the way he addresses, or I'm jumping all over, but I'm talking about the character Carter. The way he addresses Alex at the memorial service or whatever, where they display the monument and they're standing in line, and he says the line, "I'm never gonna die." It's so stupid. It's so, like, and it's not. I don't know where it's coming. I don't know who. I'm just kind of like, you're just a mindless freak. Yeah. You just need to be stopped. And why is nobody, like, stopping you? Like, I mean, why? And also, I don't even understand why the kerfuffle even happened on the plane. Like, what is his? If we could have somehow explained at some point, even if by the end, like when they seem to be friends, Alex and Carter, why Carter was so, like, razor focused on, or laser, that's what I'm looking for, laser focused on Alex.
Yeah.
Even in the beginning, I don't understand why he mattered so much to him. Any opportunity he had, he would glare at him. He turned the car around in that scene at the cafe with Alex and Clear when they're doing nothing. They're sitting there drinking coffee and talking to each other, and he almost kills Billy and to make a U-turn to prove a point, I guess.
And they're all just, they happen to be in the same place at the same time.
Right. And I'm not going to pretend people don't do mindless things that are destructive or that are aggressive or anything like that. But I, from a writer's standpoint, I don't even think they understood why he did what he did. He was just kind of, it felt like lazy writing as opposed to,
I mean,
the presentation of the character.
I understand what you're saying. I think there's definitely more that could have been done. Like I'm thinking about the I guess the unveiling ceremony or the memorial, whatever you want to call it. Because the first thing he says, he's kind of like, if you think that this changes anything between us, like it doesn't. Like it's almost like this acknowledgement that I'm alive because of you, but I don't owe you anything. And that feels real because that feels like that's a character decision. That's just sort of, that's who he is. It's just kind of like just being like completely like cocky and arrogant and just feeling like you didn't do this. I'm in control of my own fate. Right. Like you might have like this might have saved me, but like I don't owe you anything and don't expect me to ever treat you differently. But then when he turns around, he's like, I'm never gonna die. Like that just seems like juvenile. Like that's something I would expect from like if he was 5 years old. And in terms of like this, like the earlier on, like when we're meeting everyone in the airport for the first time, and he's, we can just see that he's like big man. He's got like the blonde next to him, and he's cool because he does the thing. He picks up the luggage and he throws it over Sean William Scott's character's shoulder, and that causes him to fall down. So just like, why was the decision not made to do that to Alex instead? Or maybe while everything was happening, we could have seen that there was an issue, like a pre-existing rivalry, or maybe they used to be friends between him and Alex, just something to kind of establish that. Because it just seemed like he was like a very testosterone-fueled individual who was just more like he was like the leader of the pack, and it's just like, oh, someone is out of line, I need to like step up and assert my control over this. And I don't think that people like that don't exist. It just makes him less interesting. So that's what I agree with you on. Like there could have been from the get-go. Yeah, there could have been a little bit more nuance added to that, but I mean, he's such an irrelevant character to me by the end of the movie, really, because he kind of, after the whole thing with the car on the train tracks, he disappears until the final scene. Right. So it's just kind of like I think that he serves a really good purpose for that scene, like when he is doing that, because that's kind of, I think that is a good reaction to have, like, given the discovery of this news that just like death is coming for us, and it's just like, it doesn't matter what I do if we're gonna die anyway, or conversely to that, like, I could try to kill us right now and it's not going to happen, because it's almost like there's like this divine intervention that will prevent that from happening, because death already has a different design for us. So it's like, I can see that with him wanting to challenge that, like that makes sense. Sure. So I agree partially, but I think that there is still enough of a character there. But yes, I would have liked maybe a little bit more from him.
Yeah. Because your explanation feels absolutely valid, and I don't think it's not there, but I feel like, and this is coming from the headcanon queen, that's me, I feel like you just did more work than the writers did in actually kind of like filling that in, and I think you did more work than the actor did too, quite frankly. But so that's my poo-poo of that particular aspect. But the but then what follows, I mean, like, I have a problem. The thing that, like, kind of like, again, the movie had its hooks in me, and I start feeling the hooks kind of like lifted out because I'm watching, and after the scene that I mentioned, like, then I'm watching like Devon Sawa's character Alex like confine himself to a cabin and, you know, react in a fear-based extreme kind of way as you know, aforementioned, and but he for no reason at all, putting a lamp like over a bowl of water that could easily fall over and still catch at fire to anything that it was around. There's like wood and cloth and like, so the bowl should have been larger for it to actually make sense. And I still don't understand, number one, what he's eating, because it looks like pet food. It looks like the food that I feed Des, in the little can with the pull ring and everything like that. Yeah. It's not often wrapped in like a plastic bag that you have to tear open, so I don't know what it's supposed to be, but it looks like the way it looks from the top, it looks like cat food. And then he starts eating it, making that face, that sucking teeth face.
Well, because he's kind of, I guess like he's like checking for bones.
Really?
Yes.
I did not get that.
I know that because I believe it's stated on the commentary. Like, I have not listened to the commentary in a long time, but I remember that they were saying like, it's just like the I guess the effect of that was just that he was sort of like making sure that there was nothing bad in it. But I mean, like, it's kind of it's not the most interesting scene, but it does posit a very interesting aspect of this movie and this franchise, is that in this pursuit to have immortality, what quality of life do you have? Because like this situation where he's like living in the woods, just surrounded by like everything is like protective, like you're not enjoying your life. You're just there, and it's just like you can't even move, you can't even eat good food. And I actually, I do find this scene somewhat charming, because like when the thing like comes open and he like dodges and like closes it, and then he just starts arguing with death. He's just like, "You fuck." It's just so funny. You think you could get me? It's just, it works for me. Like it makes sense. I just maybe it was like positioned not in the, it wasn't set up as good as it could be, because it just like came at this part of the movie where it's just like, what are we gonna do now? And it's just like, I'm just gonna hide out here, sort of thing. Like, it would have, if there was sort of like a build up to this, like, or just an argument that had just like, we can't do anything, and someone says like, what kind of a quality of life is that? Like, if someone actually said, I don't want to live like that. I don't want to like constantly be in fear and protect myself against like anything that can come from anywhere. Like, I'd sooner just leave myself vulnerable to something happening, and when it happens, it happens.
Sure.
So, I mean, maybe if that was something that not that it necessarily needed to be explained for me to understand, but just like for another character to kind of have that position against him, because at that point it seemed like Clear is kind of like, her whole thing is that she's kind of an empath. And I never really even picked up on that the first time I watched the movie. It wasn't until this time I'm just like, oh, that's really, right. I didn't even really recognize that, because at the beginning of the movie, she would have never gotten off the plane if it wasn't for her ability to feel what she she did. And like when he picks up the magazine and hands it to her, and he has it open on like the page of Princess Diana and all that stuff, it's almost like his abilities are so strong that she knows it before he even knows it. Not that she knows that the plane's going to crash, but that she knows that he has this like sort of this gift, if you will. So it's interesting that like both of these, like our leads, are kind of like superhuman in a way, like they have their own magical ability, which I thought was pretty cool, like watching it again. And like even moments like that,
they're stronger together.
Yeah,
too.
That I talked about, where after Terry's hit by the bus, and then you see Alex drop the Alka-Seltzer into his drink, and then the phone rings and it's clear, and she's dropping. I just did it, right? And then she's dropping the Alka-Seltzer into the water as well. Like, they're that psychically in tune with one another that they're doing the same things at the same time, which I never even considered the first time I watched, and like seeing it again, it made that, those characters and their connection so much stronger for me. So I mean, her thing wasn't really that, or her position. And obviously we know Carter's, where he's just kind of like, I'm invincible, like I'm just gonna do whatever. And then Sean William Scott was just like, like he was sort of like hysterical at that point and not really making any sense. So there wasn't really a character to posit that argument against him, and just being like, that's not a life that I want to live. I mean, I guess if there was anyone, it would have been Terry, when she's just like, they died, we lived, but then she got run down by the bus. So
I like what she said before she got run down, though. I like the fact that she said, I will not let like this one tragedy like define the rest of my life, which is, again, ironic because of what immediately follows. But
it's also ironic because that is like the same verbatim line that Tara says to Sam in Scream 6, and it just has it has no emotional bearing on anything that happens in that movie, as opposed to like Terry saying it here.
Oh my God. But any opportunities to dig?
Oh, absolutely! I will fucking take shots for it. I'm simply just so tired of anything with that movie.
Right.
People know they've already made their opinions about me. That's fine. I hate it.
There you go.
Yeah.
But no, in terms of what you were talking about with Clear, like that was one thing that I remarked on, was just like, at first I thought she was just following her own intuition, with clarity and
Clarity.
just in terms of like, because I could tell in the way Ali Larter was performing it that like there was something inside of her that was telling her, follow him, get off the plane. And she listened. She got off when there was no reason for her to. And then when she spelled it out, because I had forgotten the thing about that scene in her garage when he goes to visit her, the thing that I always remembered about it was her art, her abstract steel, metallic car, looked like car
Sculptures,
parts,
yeah.
kind of like, sculptures that she put together, and how she defined one as him, which looked like a giant question mark with, spring head guy, is that what he calls him? and I remember that explanation, but what I forgot was that she told him literally like, I didn't see what you saw, but I felt it. And so it just made me think like, oh wait, so she does have like this weird ESPN channel, ESP, for anybody who thinks I'm really saying ESPN. But she really does have this intuitive level that she wasn't trusting until she had it reinforced by someone else who was going full on like wacko cuckoo bananas, like I have to be dragged off the plane. And then she's like, okay, well, fuck it. I just have to, listen to my insides. The thing is, I wish, and I don't really have a problem with that. Because I think at that point, I don't really see it as like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like their sexual roles, like him being male, her being female. He has, it spelled out much more clearly for him, because I think, again, because he is so afraid, and because he is depicted not like a superhero, but he's depicted more like just a person who's reeling from something, and she's depicted as a person who is also reeling, but internally, and decides to answer that, with the same action as him by getting off that damn plane. When it does bother me is in the ending, when she's essentially a damsel in distress now, like inside the car, and he has to save her, because one of the things we love, one of the foundations of horror, is the fact that like we get final girls who do not need to be saved often by from the impending death that is threatening them, that is looming over them, and that they can defend themselves. And if they could have somehow depicted the two of them as equals in that vein, I think if it felt a little less knight in shining armor and princess in the castle than it did, I probably would have reacted more positively to that climax too. I like that they care about each other, but I also spent so much time prior to that kind of checked out of the action that it made me go, really? I was just kind of like, I mean, I like that you like each other, but I've seen this before. Do I really need this again? And that's what I really like about that epilogue when they're in France, is the aspect that now they're all equals again. All of them, Carter, Alex, and Clear, are all on an equal playing field, and trying to just kind of like, let that tragedy not be and you know what? I didn't like it initially when I saw them going to France. And even the line that I said, I can't believe I got on a plane again, because it seemed so carefree and so, I didn't like it because it felt like, well, you're stupid. Why are you waving the red cape in front of the bull? Like, you're just saying, yeah, death. But now I'm thinking it feels like a cleansing, like like a way to kind of like embrace their life.
The line feels written but I mean, it could have worked better if like someone in response, I don't know if I can't remember if someone said that, but just like don't even go there, don't even say that. But I don't think they were more just like like pretty fucking wild. And yeah, I mean, because that's kind of part of the argument. It's just like it's almost like they won in a sense, like even though they're like about to all die or whatever after the credits, it's showing that like we're not afraid of death anymore, or just like it's it's like the Laurie Strode Halloween Resurrection story, to make a really bad comparison, when she's just like, you know what, Michael, I've won because I'm not afraid of you anymore, and then she dies, but she dies not being afraid of him anymore, and it's just like, I guess that's a victory. I don't know, but here it's just like I said, like what kind of life do you live if you're just like eating cat food and surrounded by everything with like tape and padding and stuff? Like you have to embrace death as part of life and get on airplanes and go do these things. So in a way, it's like, I understand the line. It's just like, it would have been better if someone was just like, don't be a fucking asshole. Cause they did with everything else that he was saying in that moment, Carter. But I guess like what was interesting in that scene is that she's kind of like, as an empath now, sort of absorbed Alex's powers, cause she's the one that has this vision that like sees the bus coming, and she's the one that like calls out to him. So an interesting reversal that wasn't really, I don't think, is explored in the sequel. Not that we'll like delve into that right now, but it was there, and I don't remember it ever kind of coming up again.
Yeah, that was one huge thing for me that I really look forward to as we embark through this franchise, because I can't remember details like how death manifests. Like I said, I only remember the shadow figure. I didn't even remember it in this movie, and then when I saw it, I was like, does that come back? And then it had me wondering certainly about the entity of death, and like, it seems to be this nefarious thing that has intention, the way the water follows Todd across the bathroom floor and everything like that. But also, and the way it's calculated, I mean, to the point where it is full on, like, conjuring exorcism, like Clear, I almost did it, I just did it too, Claire. Yeah. Clear crawling up the trellis to get back into her house, and it's just kind of like, storm and electricity and the forces of nature are against you. I guess death can't just give someone, like, heart disease or have them choke on something that they're eating. Like, I don't know. I wonder, maybe that's why he's eating cat food. But I mean, again, they're soft. Eat mashed potatoes. Come on. Anyway, sorry, I will leave it. But
well, I think it's just like a disease or anything. Like, that's something that is really like, that to me feels very natural, and just something that like would exist or manifest over time. Whereas like in this situation, it's almost like they were supposed to die on that airplane. They cheated death, and death is like keeping inventory of like everyone coming in. It's just like, oh wait, 7 people didn't come here, so now we have to get creative. We have to find ways that are, that are not, natural, that are supernatural, in order to get that. And that's
to send a message to everyone paying attention.
Yeah, but that's what I always understood about this franchise, is that like if you escape death in a very natural, or like kind of like a man-made, or even like elemental fashion, your number is still up. You're on borrowed time now, and death is coming for you, and it's almost like the punishment is even going to be worse than the crime, I guess, or just what it initially would have been.
And also, if it's a conscious entity, it may want it to look like an unlikely kind of death, like Todd's, or like Ms.
Well, like with Todd, with like
Ms. Luton's.
Yeah, with Todd, like after he dies, the water slowly retracts back into like the cracks and everything. So it totally makes sense.
But just to make it look like, just to make it look strange enough that all the people who were still on that list, like as the countdown continues, they know what really happened. It's not one of those things where it's like, well, their heart just gave out. It's like, no, they freakishly, were hanged in a bathtub, and, in a way that never would have happened. And the father, even the way because that was another thing, the way his father, Mr. Wagner, I just wrote Mr. Wagner is a piece of shit. He's not the shit. He's a shit. Because he's sitting there like blaming, just doing the easiest thing in the world. And I mean that from a writing standpoint, which is just blaming Alex for, he couldn't handle it. So he killed himself. And it's like, because of you. And it's like, because he saved him. So like, now you're angry at Alex for saving him because he should have died on the plane with his brother, and that would have been better. Like,
well, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that's the issue that I have with, like, especially like the father, but like other characters who are like mad at Alex for some reason, because like it was like he just said it was like he had survivor's guilt or something. It's just like, well, I don't know how this like what. So would you have rather he died and both of them died?
Right. Yeah. And it's no, you'd rather tell yourself whatever kind of story, and I think this is very human because I see it all the time, but you'd rather build up whatever story works for you so you can feel as little responsibility as possible, but and just have a scapegoat, have somebody to just kind of like push your blame onto, because if you can hate someone, it's easier than having to actually deal with any of your feelings and any of the harsh reality that like death is inescapable, and when your time's up, your time's up. That's just the way it works. But what was I going to say? Oh, but I also wonder about the other side of it, and I can't remember if any of the movies go into this, because this one I feel like certainly doesn't. I wondered, is there an equally conscious entity? Is there a reason that the flashes are happening in the first place? Like, what is that? Is there something... Yeah, is there something sending the visions for a reason that can somehow, and maybe maybe one of the sequels answers it. But I don't feel like this movie does. And it doesn't need to. I like the mystery.
No, I don't think that it's like I don't think that it's like a divine intervention sort of thing, because like, why would there be like a higher power that'd be like, hey, don't get on that plane so then you and your friends can die even worse over a longer period of time. Like, I think that what it is that it's sort of saying that this shit happens all, like, there's airplane crashes and any sort of like tragic accidents and things that they happen all the time. It's just that this particular one, there happens to be a clairvoyant who sees it beforehand, and that's the thing that causes them to not partake in what's about to happen. So it's not really that there's a higher power that's showing them. It's just that it's almost like it goes back to that very X-Files-esque idea of it, that like these things happen all the time, but what if this happened and someone was able to foresee it, and because of that they were able to avoid death in that way? Or
it just occurred to me, what if it is a conscious decision to send these messages, but it's not coming from a benevolent force? What if it's coming? Oh, the call is coming from inside the house. What if this is also coming from? It makes me think about like Greek gods and the way they see us as playthings. What if death is just bored and thinks like, okay, so this plane's gonna go up, but it'd be fun if I sent this one sensitive kid who sees things pretty keenly, like he's got, intuition and everything like that. But what if I just, and trusts his gut. So what if I like send him like a premonition about like what I'm going to do to him on the plane and give him a chance so he thinks he's out. And then I can like get really creative if anybody follows him off the plane, and then I can, because I mean, that's the thing. Death does move with intention in this movie. It does seem to have a consciousness and, move with this kind of vitriol towards these, or not even vitriol, but certainly vengeance toward these characters. Otherwise, the death could be natural, but because it's so violent, I'm thinking death is going, ooh, and let me spin you around, and wouldn't it be funny if I could make the teapot do this and make the microwave explode in her face, and then something like that, make the house explode. Hey, I haven't seen an explosion like that since the plane.
It's almost like it's just playing this game, and the airplane crash is sort of like the main campaign, and then the survivors, those are like the side missions, or the bonus levels. Yeah, I don't like that.
And then Death gets an app. I wonder how many fans, like what kinds of theories they would assign, because I know my sister, it's funny that you mentioned X-Files as well, because my sister was the one who got me into X-Files. She was always more into it than I was, and a huge fan of it. And she's a huge fan of this franchise as well. Like, this is one of her favorite to return to and watch and rewatch and everything like that. I think because it's fun and dark, you know? Okay. It's playful enough that if you want to just kind of eat popcorn and shut your brain off, you can. But if you want to look for something deeper, you can. You know, like it's suitable for all occasions. This movie is.
I wanted to say something else about Clear. She was kind of giving me Josh Hartnett and The Faculty vibes, because she's like, where are her parents? She has like a workshop in her garage. There's no supervision, which I just thought was like, oh, that for whatever reason, that was the first thing I thought of. It's just because when all the families come to the airport and she's just standing there and like, oh right, she's an orphan or whatever, and then we find out later that she says like her dad was killed, and then the mom met some new guy and he didn't want a kid anymore, so neither should she, and it's like, oh, where are they now? They're vacationing somewhere. They just, here, keep the house. Because who does that? Like, I mean, I sympathize if anyone actually has had that experience. I just don't. I've never heard of it. Like leaving like an emancipated minor, like just to like live in your house, sort of like, here, like these are our financial assets and everything. You live here now. We don't want to have anything to do with you. With both of these characters that came in movies that came out several years apart, like that was like an archetype in these like teen horror movies.
Right, and in both versions, I will say it's probably the most movie version of that predicament that you could put on display. At least we get an explanation with her, but even with the explanation, I'm like, you straddle being, I mean, and again, like there's a way to do it, but I feel like she straddles being like incredibly self-sufficient and okay with also being kind of like broken and alone, which I would imagine somebody in that scenario would be, but I don't think the movie, it's not due to the movie's deft hand. I think it's probably Ali Larter's performance that makes that the most
That's probably
plausible.
The nicest thing you've ever said about Ali Larter.
I like her, but I you know, I mean,
I know how you feel about House on Haunted Hill. You know,
no, it's not. But she kills it in Legally Blonde. That you know, phone call exchange that she has with Reese Witherspoon. She should have won something for it. But anyway, I think she's a good performer. It's just it's a whole other discussion that I don't want to get into because we're talking about this movie and it's fun. But what was I going to say? But that character, that's another thing though. Like the way they introduce, again, like the hooks were there. Like I love the fact that like she is left standing in a room filled with all the other kids, regardless of who they are and how we feel about them. Every other kid on screen. I don't remember really if Terry gets it on screen, like featured in a way. She's actually kind of like the least exposed character in the entire movie, but we get the impression that everybody else's parents are there to embrace them and to hold them and to let them feel cherished. And, you know, like, I can't believe I almost lost you. I'm so glad you're still alive. And that she's left there just kind of like holding the door and then has to bum a ride off somebody else's parents with someone, the parents of a student who she said never said two words to her before. Mm-hmm. And, you know, just kind of get dropped off and go back to her, you know, lonely, empty house. But, that aspect of it, though it's again a very movie thing to do, it worked for me. But what really worked for me was what followed when we continue with Alex, and again a great moment for Devon Sawa, and it's the fact that the camera's as far as it is and it still hits, is when he goes back into his bedroom and his parents are there with him and he just collapses kind of emotionally. He just starts crying and just holds them. That's one thing I did notice about this particular screening. His parents, super supportive. Like at another point later in the movie, his dad's even sitting there just saying like, is there anything you need? Like, you know, like, I just wish you would talk to me. And he's just kind of like isolating and not taking Claire's calls, and he's not connecting with his parents. He's pushing them away.
Great day players. Because they did actually, like in most of these movies, it's like the parents are just non-entities. And I mean, like they were written in a way that was like very respectful to the relationship. And they did a really good job to the point where like I even noticed them in the deleted scenes, because they don't really say anything, but they're there there for like the birth of the child, and it's just like, and you just get the sense that it's just like, we're like, you know, we're here for you now, and our grandchild and all that. But
So
no, I
grounded.
I
love
did like that bit of just, it's almost like they're just from outside the window, as like the rain is coming down, and just seeing him like kind of like collapse into their arms when it's just like it finally hits. Yeah, it was really good. I guess like the one other thing that I would say about Final Destination, because ages ago I did this ranking of like all the 90s teen horror movies, and I included movies that came out in 2000 and 2001, just because I don't consider the 90s to be like a uniform, like just having existed in the 90s, like from 91 to 99. Like there's a very specific time that probably like started in the mid 90s. Like really it started with Scream, but you could probably like lump The Craft in with that, which came up before, but it was just sort of like probably this 5-year span from Scream onwards that probably, you know, went up until like Valentine, where it was just these kinds of movies. It was a very specific style, and just like almost like an MTV or more specifically WB thing with like the cast and how they and how these movies came out, and like Bride of Chucky, where they would H2O, where they would take franchises that weren't necessarily Scream coded but put that on there. And I didn't include Final Destination, and people were like really pissed off about it. They thought I was being disrespectful. And the reason I don't include it is because as aesthetically, like if you look at the poster for the, by the way, great poster. I love the like just like the skulls, and like because it was almost like it was one of those like lenticular posters, I think, where it's just like from depending on what side you looked at it, because it had like the V formation, it had the Scream thing, so it looked like they did a really good job marketing this, because it's just like, here's another kind of Scream-esque movie. It came out at a time where people were still clamoring for that. They really wanted it, but I don't include this as 90s teen horror, because it's, when the movie starts and you're watching it, it's not that, like there's young characters, but like it's so much more mature. The themes are so much more mature, and like they're dealing with like existential ideas that it's not what you would see in any of these other movies. So you know, even though based on its appearance it seems like that, I always considered this sort of like a moving away from Scream. Like this was kind of one of the first movies to take that, like it sort of took the skin, we'll say, of the skin of what Scream looked like, but it just like, you know, it had a very different like internal organ system, and that's why like that's why like this as a franchise has probably endured, because it was a different thing, and it was able to kind of endure throughout the 2000s as its own unique franchise, because it is so different, even though it's taking like the same, seemingly the same characters, like what they look like, but putting them in a completely different scenario that is not like a teen horror-esque movie.
That's actually pretty lovely to hear, actually, because I mean, my mind goes, you know, as far as lumping it, because I mean, I get what you're saying. I think the thing is, like, I can also recognize, you know, like thanks to people like Wes Craven in Scream itself, you know, we've already covered that movie, but you know, there are elevated themes that he brings to every project that he does. He always wants to make a movie about the world by and large, and a point of view about particular aspects about the world. And it's like, can horror movies condition you, you know, to and motivate you to create your own horror movies? And is it the horror movie's fault, or is it something inside of you? And you know, even can things be healed inside of you? Like, I mean, you know, like past wounds and things like that, and how do they manifest? How do people choose to face them, or choose to avoid them? And so I mean, there's room for elevated themes in other projects like that. I'm sure if we really got into it, we could do a whole pod.
I mean, I'm speaking specifically more to like the copycats of Scream, because Scream is obviously Scream. Like Scream is on a platform of its own, but like, you know, when you have movies like I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, Valentine, H2O, Bride of Chucky, like all this stuff, like those were the movies that were copying Scream in terms of like the way it looked and sort of like the basic structure of them. But something like Final Destination, it's just like, okay, we'll like market it and make it look like this, but it's a completely different beast in its own right, and it had a different story to tell. Yeah.
Absolutely, and yet at the same time, I'd say the similarities between the two. It ironically, probably again, irony is the word of the pod this episode, folks. But ironically, I think probably had more in common with Scream than a lot of its copycats because of the. I can't think of any other word than this. Well, I guess the weight. I was going to say seriosity, but the weight. Of the issues that it was tackling, whether it was tackling them head on or even just having them just adjacent, so you can feel them without feeling them, if not feeling them completely explored, they're present, like you're living in a world that is not that far from your own existence. It's a movie version of it, but it's also incredibly, another word of the pod, accessible.
Well, I'd say that just because you bring up Wes Craven, that I wouldn't as much connected to Scream. Like, I understand what you're saying, but just thematically and just in terms of I guess the style and the structure, this actually gives me a lot more Nightmare on Elm Street, because there's this death in and of itself is almost like a stand-in for Freddy Krueger, and just this it's almost like with Nightmare, it's like, well, we can't go to sleep, etc. and so forth. And then here it's just like, well, they're running from this invisible force. So there's a lot of connectivity in that regard. So I do feel the Wes Craven of it all.
Yeah, of course. I mean, outrunning death is not that far from outrunning your sleep. They're both incredibly natural things that lay you dormant, and that, I'm trying to think if there's a scene that's on par, because one of my favorite things, and I won't linger on it, but one of my favorite things about Nightmare on Elm Street that I think always sets it apart is, I even think I mentioned it in the pod, is when Marge Thompson is watching Nancy sleep. She's talking to Charles Fleischer, who's her doctor, and just takes out those cigarettes after she finds out she's sleeping peacefully, and just goes, "Thank God. What are dreams anyway?" and lights up, and he says, "Actually, we don't know what they are." So again, it's not delving into the stuff of dreams, but it's asking the question. And I'm wondering if maybe Tony Todd's scene maybe kind of explores what death is and what it means to try and outrun it, and if it's even worth attempting. Maybe that's what his character is there for. Maybe he's the Charles Fleischer of this movie.
Well, you're making me
Gina.
The way you describe Nancy's mom in that scene, you're just making me want Betty Davis to do that instead, and make Betty Davis the mortician in Final Destination as well.
She missed so many opportunities to just reinvigorate her career in horror. If she lived to be 200, she just could have lived forever.
If she just existed a little bit longer, all of the opportunities would have been there. Yes, let's bring her back. Because we're in the age of nostalgia here, which has really been going on for the last 25 years. That she would have been making bank.
Oh, she would have killed. But sadly, that's not the case. We got enough. We have yards and yards and yards of film, of footage of Betty Davis. Thank God. But in terms of this movie, ultimately, I don't know exactly what my ranking is. You'll have to look on my Letterboxd.
Oh, for all the
to find out.
Franchise.
For this particular movie too. I'd say ultimately. If we're going, because I was so saddened when I saw, because I streamed this off Apple, and they always have of all things, the Rotten Tomatoes score basically, and I think this was somewhere, it was either 39% or 38%, so it was rotten, and I thought, really, why? And then I looked on IMDb, which I know you prefer, which I think gave it about. It was somewhere in the 6. It was somewhere between 6.2, 6.8, something like that. I don't remember.
I think that IMDb is a much more accurate gauge of where a movie is.
Right.
But even Letterboxd, I look at that and just what is going on?
It's just 6.7 is what it got on IMDb.
But
6.7.
But the thing with Rotten Tomatoes that just makes it so confusing to a lot of people is that 38% doesn't mean that it's 38 out of 100 in terms of a score.
Right,
it just
right,
means
right.
that 38 take 100 critics and 38 of them liked the movie. The other 62 did not. I seem to recall Roger Ebert, I could be mistaken, but I seem to recall Roger Ebert giving this a glowing review, or maybe he reviewed the sequel and he said the sequel wasn't good, and just like talked about how the first one was really good. I don't remember, but
sure.
Yeah, so it's just, I know that this movie was actually well received at the time, or at least like enough like notable people were into it. Same with another favorite of mine, Identity, but which we covered, and I know you don't like, but
it's the Agatha Christie of it all. You know me.
This was,
there are exceptions to the rule.
Yeah, this was an interesting, like starting in the 2000s. It was an interesting time for the genre because I felt that this is where it's really started to become a case of like fewer and far between that horror movies were like really good, because we soon got into the remakes and the torture porn of it all, and it got to a point where it wasn't good. And I think that like from the mid 90s onwards, like horror was thriving, so it was just kind of, and that's really the time that I came into the genre as a fan. So it was just almost like it was kind of an upset to come into the 2000s. So when movies like Final Destination were released, and it was just like, this was something that not only was good but was being recognized for being good. It was kind of almost a victory for us. It's just like, as horror fans, like, yay, finally something that's being respected.
Yeah, and I remember feeling that when I saw it, and I felt it this time again. Like, here I'm bitching about, like, that little section prior to the epilogue and after the decapitation of Billy Hitchcock there. But also, by the way, did you notice? I wondered if there was some intent behind the proximity of the shot, the bird's eye view shot in the men's room at the airport of Todd and Alex while they're taking a pre-flight shit. And I was just kind of wondering, why do we need to see this? And it's really weird because, not that I like want to see anything, but it's also like it lacks authenticity, because at one point if you're looking at Devon Sawa's lap, and yes, I looked, it looks like he's got some gray fabric over like the tops of his thighs or something like that to kind of mask, you seeing anything explicit or whatever. And I'm just kind of like, well, then don't use it. Don't shoot them this way. Like, what are you doing? But immediately after that, there was like a jump cut to Ms. Luton going like, has anyone here seen Billy Hitchcock? And she punches, his last name. And I was just thinking like, oh, first time a toilet was like shot in a is there some, maybe I'm just reaching, but is there some like way to like gauge like, how often do we, by this point we'd probably seen tons of people taking shits, but how many shots had two guys taking his shit, side by side?
And there was another shit later on when Todd was like right before he died. So there's a lot of pooping.
Stay off a toilet.
But I mean, come on, like we've seen movies where like Friday the 13th Part 3 with Harold, and Friday the 13th part, which we haven't gotten to yet, Part 5 with what's the brother's name? Is it Demon?
Demon. And then there's one of the kills in Psycho 3 also is on a toilet. But that's Psycho 3, so Psycho Legacy. But this one, I just wondered, like, the fact that there's such a close, I mean, why is his name Hitchcock, and like why is there such a blunt, explicit, but non-explicit at the same time shot of two kids shitting? I don't know, maybe it occurred to me, so I thought I'd share it. But ultimately with this movie, the point I was going to make was I definitely lean more in the thumbs up category. I really can't wait to continue diving into these movies just to rediscover them, because I do have, I think, I lean more on the positive side overall, and at varying levels of success per flick, I think. And even within the movies, I think each one is complicated enough to warrant discussion. I
recall the fourth one being the low point. The Final Destination, the 3D one. But no, I'm excited that it's coming back. There's not a lot of information. I mean, maybe there is information out there. I just haven't been looking for it, and that's fine. I don't need to know anything about it. I'll see it when it comes out. But I'm excited that it's coming back, because it's hopefully it's warranted. Like, I'd like to see like a reason for these to come back, because I think that the fifth one actually did a really good job. Like I said earlier, they introduce new ways of just like investigating or looking at the depths of it all, and just like how we could bypass it. And it almost seemed like 5 was kind of like an upswing, and then they just stopped making them. Which I don't know how successful it was at the box office, but it seemed like it was one of those cases where maybe the movies were just diminishing returns each time, because like how many times can you tell this story with the same circumstance? Because at the end of the day, I think like it really comes down to like what's the big set piece going to be at the start of the movie, like how are we going to top it from last time? And they do a really good job of like making those very interesting, and like obviously the budget calls for it, is they do pretty radical things. So that was actually another thing, just watching this movie and seeing the plane crash, which probably at the time was like a really big deal, and like and then seeing it again now and knowing that we've got the log truck and roller coaster and the bridge and all that, so it just like it felt very small scale, but it's not a bad scene. It's a great scene, but it's just like knowing that like the franchise does actually go to lengths to improve upon itself. Like that's another, I guess, point in Final Destination's favor.
Plus, we were living in a pre 9/11 world, like when that all happened. So
well,
I think it subsequently hits in a way that maybe it didn't initially.
This came out in a way that year and a half before.
A year before. Yeah.
Did you know? Okay, so some like fun. Actually, this is interesting because this is connected to the X-Files. So the Lone Gunman, it was like a spin-off of the X-Files. Do you remember that? It's like remember the 3 nerds, the characters, and they got their own show, and it only lasted a season.
Oh, I didn't see it. So that's why it only lasted a season.
Yeah, like it wasn't successful. Right. The pilot episode of that, which came out in 2001, I think it came out like earlier in 2001. It involved a storyline where an airplane was hijacked electronically, I think, and it was gonna get flown into the World Trade Center. And they actually they filmed this thing, like, because the guy's on the plane and they somehow divert it and they're able to like have the plane fly up at the last minute, but it's on screen. Like you could probably find it on YouTube, and it's just like the plane, before it hits the tower, it flies upwards and it just like knocks the antenna a little bit, and it was just like the craziest, like, because it was so close to the actual event on September 11th that it was just like it's and the fact that the show kind of got canceled, because this was before any of that happened, obviously, that it just it just sort of got forgotten about. But it was just such a crazy coincidence that it exists out there and you can watch it.
Yeah, I wonder if
and the fact that it is X-Files connected too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if anybody's seen that and wondered if it was made after the 9/11, after the fact, and kind of like as a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood kind of spin, like, well, what if that horrible tragedy didn't happen in that way? What if this were an alternate version of that? Which, I mean, I have my own opinions about, but we're not talking about that movie. But that's interesting. Yeah, cool. Thank you for telling me that.
Yeah,
fuck,
crazier things. Yeah. Anyway. I think that we've exhausted all of our FD talk, so why don't we get to the 100th cherry picker?
It's not like we killed people on purpose.
So who do we think is the cherry on top here? I think that we've kind of agreed, but I mean it's Alex.
Yeah. Devon Sawa. The movie works. Because if you cast somebody else in that role, it changes everything about the movie, and he's why I watched this first movie over and over again.
And I don't really. I know there's some drama behind the scenes of like why he didn't come back. I don't know specifically what it is. Maybe we'll research it more and find out when we do talk about the sequel. But he just like I don't remember if he didn't want to do it or they didn't want him to do it or something. But I mean, like, he was supposed to, as far as I know, but he's definitely missed in the franchise, because I would have loved to continue following this character.
Absolutely.
And I think that would have been that's where the differences come from, like, Scream and Final Destination. Like, he is our Sidney Prescott in a way that, like, I would want to see more movie, and especially just like, okay, well, death is, could be here imminently, and then what new tragedy could strike that he gets out of and just keeps going. Because I mean, it's kind of sucky that it's just like that's the fate of these characters, is they just die, whether it be on screen or off screen or whatever. But there's I think that maybe the franchise would have had a different trajectory if he had remained alive and the star of each and every one of the films. And I think it would have,
the Sidney Campbell,
it would have
Sidney Campbell, Sidney
Cindy
Prescott.
Well, I mean, her too, but I mean, to just be the emotional core to Curious.
Well, I mean, because it's to bring Scream into it, like, it'd be you and I in our Scream 2 discussion largely discussed how much kind of like the arc you and I really love to follow is Gale. That said, I can't imagine that movie without Sidney. If Gale were like the new protagonist that we were following, or even just like the sole recurring role that we were following, different trajectory. It would have been a very different franchise. It's not like it wouldn't have worked, but I'm glad you've never made me more glad that we got the Scream 2 that we got.
Don't thank me.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank Wes Craven. Thank everybody.
All right. Last time we asked you who deserves to die the most in Joyride. I nominated Rusty Nail. You nominated Local in Nebraska Bar. And based on Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube votes, the total was 435 for Rusty Nail versus 182 for Local in Nebraska Bar.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for showing up.
Yeah, so reading some of the comments, RSDM says, my vote is for the Bar Local. I'm glad I rewatched this before the pod episode because I didn't remember anything about it.
Right.
Amethyst Frost, kill the Local, because that entire section of the movie after the brothers pick up Venna and the trio just wanders aimlessly is when my attention starts to wane. Joyride feels kind of immaterial. Oh, that's such a U word. Kind of immaterial this week, because what I really want to say is happy 100th episode to the Cherry Picker, and happy 200th Cherry podcast between the official Cherry Picker, the After Darks, and the old podcast on Patreon. I guess I ruined that for Amethyst by mentioning it earlier. I had no idea that this comment was on here.
Thank you,
Zack and Eddie, and occasionally Eric. And I'll just add as well, we also Andre for bringing us all nearly 4 continuous years of weekly horror movie discussions. And thank you, Boy Cried Wolf, and Andre. See, there I am. I'm just jumping ahead.
There you go. Stop undercutting Amethyst Frost.
Thank you, Boy Cried Wolf, and Andre for editing. I came on board as a listener in October 2022 when I wanted to hear perspectives about Halloween Ends, and the Cherry Picker has given me something to look forward to for over a year since. I admire your consistency, hard work, and humor, and I wish nothing but the best for you all. P.S. Since I keep the spreadsheet, thank you for the frequent shout-outs. Let the record show that among the regular Cherry Picker episodes, Zack has won 59 episodes and Eddie has won 39. But as they often say, it's not a competition.
Right? It's a total competition.
Well, you better catch up. Thank you, Amethyst. I very much appreciate that. Thank you for the spreadsheet and everything. That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm overcome. And yeah, thank you so much for your kind words. And thank you for being more organized than either of us.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're putting us to shame.
Never anticipate like a mistake from Amethyst Frost. Like he'll get there.
Future Boy says, I could never kill off a Ted. Is it Levine or Levine?
I think I said both during the pod, actually,
Yeah.
but I think I've heard Ted Levine, I think, but don't go by me. Say what you feel.
No relation to Avril. I don't know. Someone was like correcting, but I didn't know. I didn't take inventory of what it was. But anyway, I could never kill Ted Levine, his character, because that voice brings me too much joy. Though not a perfect movie, I love how Joyride fits into the horrific road movie lexicon with thrillers like Duel and The Hitcher, 2 films you should consider covering on the pod someday. Congrats on your upcoming 100th episode. You two bring me more joy than Ted Levine's voice. Thank you, future boy. I was not expecting all of this 100th episode fanfare. This is quite a surprise. Yeah.
Delightful. Yeah.
Antonio G, thank you for covering this movie. I know you don't take requests, and it was just good timing that there was nothing planned, and I mentioned this, but to show my appreciation, I joined your Patreon. Well, thank you. Oh my god, just everyone is just being so amazingly sweet right now.
Oh my gosh, I love 2024.
Yeah. I can't argue the faults you two pointed out, but I still really like this movie. Always entertained by the chemistry of Steve Zahn and Paul Walker, R.I.P., Lily showing her acting chops, and of course, one of the best voices in horror history, Ted Levine. Everyone's going to keep saying it. This time I'll say Ted Levine. Next time I'll say Levine. Congrats
there you go.
on the 100 episodes on the Cherry Picker. Here's to 900 more for the 1,000 episode where you two are in the same place. LOL.
Hey.
P.S. It seems you two are in this for the long haul. Can we please get Eddie's face on the thumbnail for these podcasts? I would sooner just take my face off of them. I don't even. It's just I started doing it that way, and then it just like for consistency's sake. But I mean, Eddie, if you want your face on there, I will give you thumbnail creation responsibilities.
Oh, okay. Let me think that over. We'll see if I have time to add that to my pile, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll continue to discuss.
I'm feeling.
Just say it's pending.
I'm feeling called out here.
I swear I didn't put anybody up to this.
I know you did. Silent Saturn. Oh, and thank you, and Antonio G. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes.
Silent Saturn. I felt bad for Rusty when he mentioned how he isn't good at flirting / dirty talk and being self-conscious about his looks. It seems like the brothers hit right on his insecurities with the cruel prank. Sure, he overreacts, but I had a bit of sympathy for him. Not so much with the human waste at the bar. He can't die enough. P.S. Congratulations on 100 episodes and to many more. Love the pod. Keep up the good work. Oh, my heart is filled.
Me too,
And we're not even
getting the vocal minority.
And there's still more. Blue Box. I
Yay.
can't vote against that sexy voice, the Rusty Nail podcast. Oh, could you imagine? I just see like Rusty Nail, Ted Levine, and Woody Allen doing a podcast together.
Oh God. Just be sitting there just talking like there's going candy cane. He'd be like, I'd better go.
Candy canes are sweet for 19. Yeah. Give me a cavity.
Just bring me some pink champagne. Yeah, bring us 2 bottles of pink champagne. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that'd be great. I'd listen.
Michael Diamond. Man, I love this movie. The brothers walking in the diner naked played a huge role in me realizing I was gay. LMAO. I haven't thought about this movie in years. I'm voting for the local in the Nebraska bar because Rusty Nail got the guys naked.
I like that vantage point.
I think I was already new before I saw anything of any sort of substance. But for me, it was always the Chris Evans scene, ironically parroting the Allie Larder scene in Varsity Blues. Whereas like Allie Larder that came out in the whipped cream, but in this case it was Chris Evans with the banana split.
Oh, 100%.
That was
that
wasn't an awakening. That was like a nudge.
A rediscovery.
Yeah,
an affirmation, maybe. An affirmation.
Yeah.
Like, check. Yep, still
Yeah.
there. Still checking that box.
Daddy Queen says, I absolutely love this movie, and I still remember watching it in theaters. My vote is the bar guy because he is a total douche. Yes, Rusty Nail is a psycho, but if they had genuinely apologized and not pranked him, everything would have been fine. So definitely kill the local bar guy. P.S. I didn't know there was a third until Eddie mentioned it. I only thought there was two.
Oh.
Didn't?
Yeah, I didn't either.
Didn't they apologize to him, though? And he still was fucking with them? He was petty.
They apologized.
For
sure. But I mean, they apologized because they were about to die, basically.
Yeah. He
They
just
didn't
petty.
apologize when he was giving them the opportunity, like you said, apologize.
Yeah.
And they're just like, yeah, apologize because you're a freak. Like that, anything that
Yeah.
follows that. Okay, you just don't want me to kill you now. I understand.
But then Michael Vasquez says Rusty Nail.
Hey!
Sweet and simple. And then Neat-O says both MFs.
Wow.
Both
Okay.
motherfuckers.
But who'd you vote for? That's what I want to know.
Well, probably
for
Rusty
yours.
Nail, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Final Destination.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm stepping on your toes here, but I'm gonna pick
go for it.
Carter because
Okay.
I don't know. No other character in the movie really rubbed me the wrong way, other than him. For not. I mean, if you want to, make a statement about your own invincibility or whatever, you challenging the thing, that's fine. But to put 3 other people's lives at risk, and then he pissed himself. Did you see that he pissed himself? Did you ever notice that? Alex pulls him out like that, and that's such a great. We didn't really talk about it, but that's a really like
tracks.
suspenseful moment of just like him going on and like pulling him out there. I do have an issue with some of the editing in this movie because that train clearly hit them. We did not see the moment where they got out there, but when we do check back in with them and they're sort of like crawling away backwards from the train, you could just see like Carter has like a big wet stain right on his crotch. He pissed himself.
I did not notice that. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, I like the movie even a little bit more now for that detail. It's all about the details,
It's the devil's in the details.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Carter, he has a last name, I'm sure. What is it? I don't know.
Here, I can look it up real quick. Vamp, say things.
Well, I'm already there, so I can just tell you right now that it is
Okay.
Horton.
Horton. Here's a
Yeah.
who.
Who? Carter Horton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dr. Seuss's Carter Horton. Here's a who. Okay.
What say you?
We actually didn't. I'm glad that you chose him because I would have chosen him but we didn't really invest much in this character either. We mentioned her, but I may lose. I don't care because this character irks me, and I'd love there to be a vocal minority behind me for this character, Ms. Luton. Because as you mentioned, like the fact that you liked cinematically, I'm sure, her response to Alex and everything like that. I had a very different response to it, even from the get-go. I remember the first time I saw the movie, I just thought, what an irresponsible teacher. Like, there's drawing boundaries, and then there's, like, exposing your prejudice and it's beyond vulnerability. I can't even put a word to it. I guess your trauma, but the way it's manifesting, you really, maybe you just shouldn't be a teacher. And the fact that she's moving, I don't remember if we establish whether she's simply moving to another town and she's going to find a new line of work, or if she's going to move to another school in another town. But irrational, like erratic nature really bothers me. The fact that like the second she sees her student or her former student now, like when she's decided to move and everything like that, milling about her house, and her immediate instinct is to call agents. Oh, and I looked up which one is which. Agent Wine is pale, and Agent Shrek is not so pale.
Well, the one guy
So
is
her immediate...
Daniel Roebuck, who I recognize from things.
Cool.
Yeah.
So her immediate impulse is to call them, and I'm just kind of like, what are they going to do? And even the fact that they put him in the car, it's like, what right do you have to do that? Like, I mean, it is suspicious and unfortunate that they find him like looking at the wheels of her car and everything like that. But like, did you check the car to see if anything was done to it? Did you, like, I mean, it just felt like a mess, and she's a mess. And in all full disclosure, as much as I feel an affinity for Todd when he's going through his elaborate kill scene, hers is just as elaborate, but I laugh at her. I really do, because the fact that she like takes the mug and she drinks out of it and just goes, ah!
Why did she scream? That confused me.
Because the mug had the school emblem or the school name.
That is a very dramatic reaction to nothing.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, you never should have been a teacher. And I just, she doesn't know how to deal with anything. And again, I should be feeling sympathy for her, and I want to feel sympathy for her, but I'm just like, you can't handle shit.
Yeah.
Like, it would have made her, it would have made her a much more interesting character if she had walked a line of fear and, really trying to, but she's just fallen apart at the seams. And then her death is comedic to me, and I'm just like, well, then just die.
Yeah.
By the time I knew her death was imminent, I was not afraid.
Yeah.
I was like, go for it. What has the movie got for you? And I was very entertained. So I think she deserved it.
I think that I understand everything you're saying, and I agree, because I think that she was another character that kind of devolved. Like I really liked where she started off when she's like, the first time we ever meet her is when that guy hands Alex the pamphlet, and she's just like, don't harass my students, and keeps moving him along, like just very supportive, and she just turns around and mouths fuck you or fuck off or whatever, and it's just like, ooh, I like her, like she's spicy. And
but even then I was like, it's a guy in an airport, like you can just like walk away. I was like, excuse me. So I mean, I actually didn't like that moment, but because I'm like, that's an extreme.
Regardless, she's all about extremes. Yeah.
She is.
But yeah, like there's definitely
a figure of authority.
There's definitely a shift. Like I liked that was kind of her response to Alex, like get away from me, you scare the hell out of me. But at the same time, I feel like we didn't really we didn't see the transition from one extreme to the other. Like we're told about it just in the that she's freaked out about it, but we didn't really see it. And it's kind of like the same way with Carter. And I just think it's funny that Carter says that she was his favorite teacher, because this does not strike me as a person who like gives a shit about academics at all. So it's these two, who knows what the fuck is that, like, favorite teacher, favorite pupil.
There was an effort with her, like when she's making the disclosure about like sending the other teacher back on the plane because he does the French thing and whatever. Yeah. And she even says it in the phone call when she's, before she dies, she's like, I just keep reliving that same moment over and over again about the French thing. And I'm just like, I again, you're a figure of authority, and I don't know how new you are to this profession, but like, come on, like, could you behave like it? Like, even when you stopped being their teacher in the present tense, you still, I love seeing that you can't kind of help being that authority figure, that influence, that mentor in their life. And if she could have been written in a way that showed me somebody who was like legitimately struggling and to the point where I'm just kind of like, well, clearly, this is the only route you can take. Instead, I watch her and I just go, there are so many other ways you could have handled this, you stupid piece of shit. Again, with the piece of shit, she's not the shit.
I get
she's
it.
A shit.
Anyway, she was also
she
was also in the Black Christmas remake. She was the older sister of the
That's right.
Claire in that one. Anyway, that's gonna be everything. So you can vote for Carter Horton, or you can vote for Ms. I think it's like Valerie
Luton is her name. Yes.
So the polls are open on Instagram. Go follow us there at the Cherry Picker Pod. YouTube. Subscribe at the Cherry Picker, or Patreon. You can vote there as well. Go support us there. Greatly appreciate all of the support you can offer. This is the part I always forget. because we've done it 99 times before. If you are new to the Cherry Picker and you're joining us for our 100th, you can obviously watch us on YouTube. And if you are watching us on YouTube, you can listen to us as well. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. Socials, Edward, what are they?
You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Letterboxd. This is the hardest I've ever had to work to remember them. And TikTok, I have a second video that is up. It did not do as well as my first. So if you want to watch my cat snore, check it out. And it's all under the same moniker, Edward is Truth, one word, traditional spelling. How about you, Zack Cherry?
You can find my main YouTube channel, Zack Cherry, ZackCherry. I'm on Letterboxd, also the same. Twitter, ZackCherry8, and Instagram at RetroBitchface. What do we got going on next week? Real quick.
The Witches.
The Witches. The real one.
You said real quick, and I actually answered really quick for the first time in probably 99 episodes.
Greatly appreciate it. Anyway, thank you for watching, for listening for 100 episodes, and then some. Greatly appreciate it, and we will be right back.